Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by CJ Vogel and Gerry Hamilton of ontexasfootball.com. This is this week's State of the Program, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. All right, guys, a couple things we want to tackle in State of the Program this week. First of all, we want to talk about some news and notes on the team that we've picked up over the last 6-7 days, etc. We want to talk about the players getting their championship rings as well earlier today. That was a nice touch by Steve Sarkisian. Then we talk about recruiting. 3 current visitors on campus right now for the Longhorns. Big weekend ahead with 18 official visitors lined up. And then last weekend, the Longhorns had 16 official visitors. And they had a quarterback commitment all in the space of, for 2026, all in the space of 7 days. I don't know how these coaches keep up. They've even had camps going on at the same time where a couple guys have been offered. So much less us being able to keep up with it as media members, can you imagine the coaches right now? It is full on in every way, shape, or form. What do you think about the busyness right now? I just want to talk, there's a little sidebar here to start. The busyness, Gerry, of the Texas coaches right now. You think they're able to handle this kind of intake right now?
Yeah, they can handle it because they all have like July 1 circle on their calendar for when they get out of state and get away for like 2 or 3 weeks, go back, Chris Jackson will go to Arizona, Kyle Flood will go to a beach in Jersey, wherever these guys get away back kind of home where they have houses. I think they can handle it because they have that date circled. Now, they're going to be a lot of commitments the first 2 weeks in July, right? So there's still phone time, but I just think that in getting through this weekend, that 25th, when the dead period begins, I think they have that circled. And I think, look, they can get through this. It's vital, but don't make no mistake, July's maybe their favorite month.
Yeah, I would say this. They're going to be, to your point, Gerry, they're going to have that time circled in that July 20 or June 25th date circled because that's when the dead period starts. But recruiting is going to be far from dead at that time, CJ.
Right. Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, you look through that first week of July with all the commitments. Of course, Smith Robo the first, Marco Jones the second, Zion Williams the fourth. It's only going to get going. It's going to get hotter as the summer months get hotter on the recruiting trail. But for these coaches, kind of finding a cool spot on the beach is probably going to be that key for July. I know that it's been nonstop with the camps, with the official visitors, with summer conditioning back up. But yeah, I'm sure they're all counting down the days, if you will. They're probably breaking out in the team meetings with 14 days left to 13 days, just ready to go, find a beach, basically.
Hey, Bobby, one of the things that happened last year, to CJ's point, what we're talking about is last year, remember, Sark didn't leave the team very much during the season, during the July break, because he knew he had a shot with this team. I think we're going to see similar this year.
That'd be interesting. We'll be tracking it. I will say recruiting calls are easier to take when you have your toes in the sand. That might be some of the assistants as they're burning the midnight oil right now. We mentioned the 16 visitors last weekend, 3 midweek right now, actually ongoing as we speak right here, and then the 18 this weekend. But I want to start with some team news and notes, if you don't mind. CJ, you talked about it a little bit there. What have you heard behind the scenes on the team that you want to share with folks?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of excitement, right? You've added a few pieces out of the portal. You finally have an idea of what this team is going to be, right? You had a little bit of a clue in the spring. Now that these guys finally arrived on campus, this is who you'll be going to war with in the fall. This is who basically, is going to make up your wins and your losses on the field. So I think everybody here has heard great things about Silas Bolden and what he's brought to the table. Of course, this is kind of what he's designed to do, in terms of these summer conditionings, these workouts, and without the pads and the helmet. I mean, this is a guy that has elite, elusiveness. He can change direction on a dime very well. That's what he does. On top of that, I've actually heard some encouraging things about that second unit on the offensive line. And what's interesting there is I think everybody's excited about returning 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. Cam Williams is that next guy up at right tackle. What's next from that? Of course, there's going to be that battle going in fall camp with Cole Hudson, Nato Umeozulu, Hayden Connor. Those are those guys stepping up right now. But beyond that, positives and returns to, Brandon, Andre Kojo, Jaden Chapman. I've heard that those bodies have started to really take shift.
All right, CJ, that's good stuff about the Silas Bolden as well as at second team offensive line. Gerry, you're hearing some other receivers actually stepping up that I think are important. What are you hearing at this point?
Well, I got a text yesterday that said speed more than we thought, and that was just on offense in general. The whole thing. Then Mari Nyblack with Silas Bolden addition now. The guys coming back for summer workouts, just how everybody's now the full offensive team there with Silas Bolden there. Speed more than we thought. And this person was already thinking it was going to be a fast team, right? So it kind of goes to what we're saying is, you added a little rocket there and a Silas Bolden to go with what you already had. And now you're seeing you guys like Ryan Wingover had a spring to build their body with Torrey Beckton, have their first spring practice, more comfortable now. Guys, these young guys can be playing, or Isaiah Bond, who was new in the system. Same with Matthew Golden, who was out a little bit with, a lingering foot issue. Those new guys, more comfortable now, playing a little more free from time to time. Maybe their heads aren't spinning as much with the new scheme. So I think it's the speed, Nyblack as well, the speed of the entire offensive unit is exceeding even what people in Austin were thinking.
Gerry, we thought this team was going to be fast, but it's obviously exceeding folks' expectations in Austin. But in comparison to a year ago, where you lose the fastest combine guy ever, a 4.34 wide receiver, Jordan Whittington was a mid 4.4 guy as well as what he tested at the second pro day in Austin. There's no way, right, that Texas is talking about more speed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, I agree with Gerry, and the reason why, though,
it's more vertical speed, Bobby, right?
Yeah. The reason I would say that, CJ, is not because they're going to be faster than Xavier Worthy or AD Mitchell individually, but collectively, there's not a guy out there. I mean, JT Sanders was 4.7 at best.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. There's not a guy out there that's going to run below over a 4.6 if you include Amari Nyblack.
Right. That makes sense.
And so the question is, where does that come from? I mean, they may not be as elite as a route runner as Xavier Worthy and speed guy as Xavier Worthy. They may not have catch radius like Adonai Mitchell, but they could be faster. They legitimately could be faster as a collective because, to your point, CJ, they did not go four wide so much at all last year.
No,
on purpose. They may do that and open it up a little bit more this year. I want to say this in regards to Silas Bolden. Gerry mentioned this. One of the things that I was told is he is extremely quick in turning heads. He is also small. So don't be surprised when the first you hear us pump him up and say, oh, he looks great, yada, yada, yada. And then the first time you see him, you're like, holy cow, he's small. He is 5'8", 5'9", 165, 170. He is not 6 foot tall, 185. So
if Texas actually huddles up and you can only count 10, that's just because he's somewhere in those offensive linemen. You can't see him because of Cam Williams.
To that point, though, I mean, he plays larger. His catch radius, and we saw it at Oregon State at times, he's a vertical threat even at that size. He can go up and make plays. Again, call him the Beaver joystick for a reason on the underneath routes, but that verticality remains in his game, and I think you see that a little bit more. He plays like a 6 foot wide receiver down the field with his ability to leap and make receptions in the air.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention is the other guy that I keep telling is providing leadership, even though he's a little quieter than the other guys, is Matthew Golden. A young man out of University of Houston is turning some heads as well in off-season workouts. So we'll see how that goes. All right, I want to step forward to a couple other things, but first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. That's Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, motorcycle accident, even an ATV, and think you might be due some compensation, make sure you reach out to Adam Lowy over at theloweylawfirm.com. He's been a successful attorney in the Austin area for more than 20 years. Let his experience help you earn more from whatever you might be due based on an injury you received in a car wreck or truck wreck, etc. All right, Gerry, And CJ, the other thing I want to talk about is, Texas. It's a small thing, but Texas got their rings earlier today, Big 12 championship rings. It's a very interesting thing. I've been part of not necessarily successes at college football level, but when you're rewarded something for a job well done, it's kind of that self-satisfying feeling that you want more of. It's not one that you want to let go of, right? And I always found that in these situations, it's one that kind of reinvigorates you to go back to work a little bit, as opposed to just rest on your laurels. Gerry, you agree with that, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think I agree with that for sure. But I also think this: when you come coach at a program, a blue blood program with a history like the University of Texas, what did Sarkisian say in his press conference? We're here to win championships. This is the first time he's got a chance to put a ring on it. I mean, like for 85 fiancés, look, or 100, however many there were. What he said in his press conference has become reality on some level now. And after 5-7 and the build to 8-5, and then last year, again, as when you take these jobs, the amount of pressure that you're under at these jobs is immense for a coaching staff, because you sell your vision, and that vision has to become reality at some point if you're going to truly ascend over a long period of time. And that they did that in year 3. Again, it's a Big 12 championship ring. I know the Texas fans we only care about national championship rings, a large majority of them. But when you think about this from a coaching standpoint and recruiting standpoint and what your message is to kids, you're now delivering on that message. We're going to win football games. We're going to win awards. You're going to be developed. We're going to win championships, and you're going to get drafted. Yeah. And that checked off another big box. And I was going through some Instagram and before we did this, and you saw Cam Williams on his story putting the ring on, or has the ring in his hand. That matters to these guys. Remember this about Cam Williams, guys. He lost in state championship games. He was part of not getting it done. That means something to these guys, even though they didn't win the national championship, that they've won a Big 12 championship, because those are still hard to win.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to add a couple things. You talk about recruiting and being able to show off trophies or rings. Imagine those photos of Nick Saban having a kid in his office, and what do you see on his desk at all the time? Yeah, I mean, it's about 10 boxes worth of rings sitting out front saying, you come to Alabama, you'll win this. You'll earn this. Texas can now do that. It's a start. It's a Big 12 championship. I understand that. But as you mentioned, those aren't easy to win. And to do so, now you have that foundation for moving forward. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's 25, 30 newcomers on campus right now who won't be receiving rings, who want to be a part of that. That's that extra drive that you continue to bring in that says, hey, this is where the program is. If you want to be a part of this and celebrate with the team next year, there's a certain level that you have to be a part of on the field, behind the scenes, in the film room, etc. That's how a good culture is, continued year in and year out.
Hey, I want to switch gears and head towards recruiting for a little bit, if y'all don't mind. And I want to look at the macro perspective. First, I want to say good luck, by the way, to KJ Lacey. He's out at the Elite 11 right now, working out the 2025 quarterback commitment out of Saraland, is involved in that elite camp. Actually, wide receiver Jamie French from Jacksonville is out there catching balls from those quarterbacks as well. Maybe he's trying KJ Lacey on for size himself, but we want to wish him well. But I want to look at recruiting from a grander perspective, Gerry and CJ. Texas at 11 commitments right now. Gerry, you said that we think there are 4 to 5, definitely 4 guys that have already told Texas privately, hey, I'm coming. They have not made public announcements or they're continuing official visits. So we know that's tenuous, right? Until they go public. Even then it can be tenuous once they go public. But the point being, it's still in that we're in the throes of it all, right? They're at 11 right now. What number do y'all see them even going to? I mean, they've got 18 more guys coming in. They had 16 last weekend. Can they get to 25 in this class? Is it going to be 20? Are they going to try to get to like 17 or 18 and stop a little bit? What do you think the strategy is here? And I'll start with you, Gerry.
Yeah, so I've kind of got it down to 31, 32, 33 spots likely will have to be replaced off this team, whether it's seniors, guys that go pro early, maybe there'll be portal additions, obviously guys leaving the program, jumping in the portal. You're going to be looking at 32, 33. So over a third of your scholarship roster is going to churn. And so I could see, look, it's kind of up to Sark how he wants to balance high school and the portal, right? I could see him going to 25, 26, 27 in this class if he wants to. I mean, I think it's going to be there. But then that's how much you want to balance in the portal because, look, they signed 11 guys out of the portal this year. Now, one's already transferred out, Kendrick Blackshire, so it's 10. But that's a little bit more than what we thought. We were all thinking 7, 8, 9 if you stretch it, right? But that thing got to 11. Now it's 10 once it's settled in. So it's balancing that with needs. And how many high school guys you're going to sign is going to be the key there. But I think this, if they want to go to 25, 26, 27, they can get that many prospects in this class that they want. They aren't going to have to stretch for anybody. It's off their evaluations, no B-list guys. It's who they like. So that's going to be the question is how much does Sark want to push this and how much meat does he want to leave on the bone for senior season? You know, could you walk out of this cycle in June and with the July commitments in the August before the season kicks off with 19 or 20, 21 guys, save 4 or 5 spots for the season? We'll have to see. I think it's going to come down to what these kids actually want to do. The timing is everything for me. I mean, there's guys Texas can get right now, but it's the timing of when they announce versus somebody else announces later on and how that impacts each recruitment. And then there's the NIL piece. What are some teams going to throw at one prospect versus what you are with other things, other decisions coming down the pike there? So, I mean, there's so many things that go into it, but I do think a class of 25 is not out of the question.
Bobby, I wanted to ask you this real quick because it's more philosophical recruiting cycle turnover question here. I love the idea of leaving a number of available spots for your roster open, considering what might occur in the portal. Texas had done tremendous this past offseason. We saw that with their additions. If you're the GM of this roster and you have the idea of, probably going out to add a couple more defensive linemen next year because you are looking at 5 or 6 departures this year, is it worth still adding a 25-person class, even if, you feel comfortable with the guys behind you out of high school? I say that because you see coaches take over new jobs and immediately say, we've got to reshape this entire roster. Elko's in that position right now. Venables did that 2 years ago. Sark did it 3 years ago, right? That's what you see them take that big high school class. Is it still worth it to take 25, even with, the portal kind of being as generous as it has been to Texas?
It all depends on overall numbers. I think this will be the last class where Sark is able to do that. If they keep the scholarship number at 85, by the way.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is he's now 4 full years in. And I think that in a couple of his early classes, he took guys that he took some chances on. And some of those have already rubbed out. They've already gone, right? So they've moved out already. And I think that as he gets his recruiting winnowed down even further, and it's going to cause a situation where there's going to be fewer guys that aren't at that level that he wants. And so you're going to see maybe a dip in the number of overall guys coming in the portal, except for position attrition that is important. Like this year, it was defensive tackle. I think, to your point, CJ, I very much believe that defensive tackle could be a position again next year. Right. Because they're going to be losing so many older guys. Now, that also will depend on where's Alex January in a year, where's Sadir Mitchell in a year, but whether they go for 1 or 2 defensive tackles in the portal as opposed to 3 like they did this year, right? And so I think all of that comes into play. I am okay with however you want to do it. The key for Texas and I think this is really important, is you got to get big name guys on campus early because it's a lot easier to keep guys happy if they're on your program than it is to attract them to come to you once they're successful. So I think that there's always going to be room for the Javion Cole types that are in that one, they're in the FBS level division, but they're coming up a level. I think there's always going to be room for those guys on your team. It's going to be harder to find an Andrew Makuba who has 3 years starting. You only get Andrew Makuba because he's coming back home, right? He's coming back to Austin since he's an LBJ grad. And so my take on it is it's a little bit of a mix. If you're Texas and you can get elite players early and kind of get them in your system, like an Anthony Hill, like an Arch Manning, those types of guys, like a Jordan Washington even, Gerry. I mean, that's a tight end is a developmental position.
Yeah.
But if you get an elite guy that you can bring in and kind of bring him along, I still think that there's room for both with a priority on high school recruiting, and you're filling in the blanks with the portal. That's where I come out on.
And I would add this. Sometimes these high school classes too, especially in the state of Texas, depends on how you view the next year's in-state talent crop. Not that guys don't develop, but are there, when they're looking at the board right now of 26s, and they've had a lot of these kids on campus now, what does that look like compared to 25? That could push your number up a couple in the 25 class, back in the 26 class. I think one of the most fascinating things we're going to kind of be talking about in the coming years is, CJ, think about how many guys have had to go down a level coming out of high school because of the portal. So this is where the portals really started to impact things, Bobby and CJ, moving forward, is there are countless guys that I've seen that 3-4 years ago would have been no doubt Division I prospects and maybe lower Power 5 prospects, but they had to start down a level because of the portal. And now I think we're going to get to this point where a lot of those kids, because I think the first 2 or 3 years of the portal, it was just missed kids, the Javion Coles of the world, right? Jared Verses. But now we're going to get to the point in the next couple of years where these kids never should have been down there to begin with from a talent level. And you're going to have more of that come filtering into the portal as possibilities. And if I'm thinking it, the college coaches are thinking it. So that's going to be interesting to see how things play out in the future.
Good stuff there. All right, let's skip forward to recruiting specifically for Texas. As I mentioned, Longhorns have 11 commitments on the campaign for 2025. They just picked up a commitment for 2026 in Dia Bell out of American Heritage High School in Florida. Guys, 18 prospects coming in this weekend. They've got 3 defensive backs on campus as we speak, in Dorian Brew, Nathan Tillman, as well as Dijon Lee. They've got more DBs coming in this weekend. Is DB kind of the emphasis right now this weekend, along with some top-end guys like Michael Fasusi, Zion Williams, Khalid Lockett, Jamie French, those types of guys? And they have 7 guys already committed, expected to make official visits as well. What's going on this weekend?
Yeah, I look at this weekend more so as an idea of, hey, we got some top guys coming in. You mentioned Khalid, you mentioned Jamie French, you mentioned Michael Fasusi. But the idea of getting to build around the team, build those relationships with not only the team members, but 7 commits are coming on the campus as well. This is an idea, especially with the quarterback, KJ Lacey coming in for Khalid Lockett, Jamie French, to build upon what they were able to do April 6th when they were last on campus together and say, hey, we have the opportunity to come to Texas, play under a great offensive system, and put up some big numbers because, hey, I'm talented, you're talented. We got the big 3 offensive linemen committed already on campus, and there's another 5-star that we're working to get into the fold. It's an easy idea and easy opportunity for this Texas staff to just envision what it might look like playing together at the next level. That's what my biggest takeaway on the offensive side of the ball is. Defensively, it's hard to look at this group of midweek visitors as well as the guys coming in this weekend and not say the defensive backs steal the show. course, Texas only has one commitment at the moment in the defensive secondary, and that's Caleb Chester, who popped on June 11th right after his official visit. Could that also be the case for a guy like Cade Phillips, Aiden Anding? I mean, we'll see after this weekend, obviously, but that is going to be the big target, is saying, hey, we've got to figure out what this room looks like. You know, it was kind of a fight and a struggle to get Dorian Brew on campus in the first place. Texas is fighting to flip Nathan Tillman from SMU, so we'll see, of course. But right now, you're starting to get a little bit more of a clearer picture with defensive back recruiting. Obviously, this weekend's a big opportunity to lock some guys down and build that class a little bit more on the defensive side.
Jerry, you think that the defensive secondary comes into more focus after this weekend?
Has to. Yeah, absolutely has to. This is a huge week for Texas. And look, coming off last week with a guy like Treston Castro, who's at USC this weekend as well. So a lot of those defensive back questions are going to be answered here in the next 10 days for Texas. I definitely believe that. Obviously, Dorian Brew goes to Ohio State after Texas midweek visit. But, yeah, no, I think that's 100% the case. And I'll say this, you know, what's interesting, we're talking about how recruiting, you know, some of the things that kind of happened in recruiting. KJ Lacey and Jamie French, even though they're from Mobile and Jacksonville, will be on the same flight to Austin together. So they'll probably be sitting right next to each other on their official visit to Texas, because they're both coming from Elite 11 out in California. But I would say this about the recruiting weekend too, and we'll be, CJ and I'll be there, we'll be covering it on Texas football in Austin. But as much as we're focused on Austin, I think bigger things with this class are happening where targets are this weekend. I look at FSU with Kevin Wynn, Javion Hilson, and Myron Charles. And maybe Lamont Rogers there as well. But those three D linemen, one from Georgia, two from Florida. Josiah Sharma at Alabama. He was at Oregon last week, and you know Uncle Phil put a big foot forward there. But he's at Alabama this weekend. So look around where the Kais are visiting. Riley Pettijohn at A&M. That is going to be just as impactful to me on this class as what's happening in Austin. Texas now has to withstand FSU's really big recruiting weekend coming up in Tallahassee, because I think Texas has done great with Javion Hilson. I think they're doing very well with Myron Charles, and I think they're right there in the game with Kevin Wynn. What happens, because all these guys come off these highs and then they go, boom, to another official visit, and they get their socks blown off again. And FSU will be the last one they see. Josiah Sharma, Alabama's the last place he goes. Can he actually tell Kalen DeBoer and the GM Courtney Morgan, I'm not going to Alabama? Because I think that will be an incredibly tough conversation for Sharma. So I look at this from the Austin perspective. Yep, that's where our eyes are going to be at the majority of the time. But nationally this weekend, there's some big things going on in this class that don't involve kids in Austin.
Yeah. Brandon Brown at OU as well.
By the way, his mom's not supposed to make that trip.
His mom's not making the trip to
as of Tuesday was not.
Interesting. Good stuff. All right. That's really a good conversation there, CJ and Jerry. I appreciate you guys doing the state of the program. State of the program brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. More than 20 years experience in the Austin area and around the state of Texas, helping you if you've been injured, get your amount of money that you may be due from a truck wreck, car wreck, automobile accident of any kind. Again, loweylawfirm.com. Guys, I also want to say thank you to both of you for covering recruiting like you have. It's been phenomenal. Guys, if you're not a subscriber to On Texas Football, you should be. I mean, Jerry and CJ, your work, going out the airport and all that stuff, a lot of fun for people to follow along and see what the guys have to say in the immediate aftermath or even arriving before their official visits, some of the news and notes that you guys are doing. So from all of the On Texas Football family, we appreciate you guys very, very much. All right, that's going to do it for this week's State of the Program. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel. Until next time, hook 'em.